Good evening, Crowley ISD family. My name is Marlis Diggles, and I hope everyone has had a restful day as summer comes to a close. We're counting down to the first days of school, and we know that safety, as the kids are showing us, is our first priority, and that's why we're here tonight. It looks like we have about 97, right at almost 100 people logged onto the webinar this evening. And in addition to sharing information with you, we also want to attempt to answer some of your questions. But if you still have specific questions that we are not able to address this evening, we will be sharing email addresses at the end of the presentation so that you can email our panelists. Our mission in Crowley ISD is to provide our students with excellence in education so that all students achieve their full potential. We have 3 specific goals that guide everything that we do. And tonight you're here because we always want to partner with families and the community to meet the needs of all students. But I think we agree that to attain our mission and to achieve our goals, we have to start with safety first. So I'm going to turn this meeting over to Mr. Rashad Muhammad. He is the Director of Student Engagement and Parent and Community Partnerships. Mr. Muhammad.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Diggles. I appreciate the introduction. So as Ms. Diggles said, I'm Rashad Muhammad, the Director of Student Engagement and Parent Community Partnerships. And there are 4 ways that we support parents in Crowley ISD. Number 1 is to provide information, also to involve our parents, to engage our parents, and to empower our parents. Tonight, this will basically be an informational session to give you information, as we mentioned earlier, about safety. So on the screen, you see my email address. Please make sure you copy that email address down. I am an open door. You can always communicate with me if you need anything. We have some upcoming opportunities that we feel will be very important in getting our school year off to a great start. On Thursday and Friday, the first and second day of the school year, we have the red carpet greetings. Please make sure you appear at your child's school, give them high fives, get their school year off to a great start. But it doesn't stop there. You also have opportunities moving forward to participate. We have the All Pro Dads, which is an engagement opportunity for fathers throughout the district. And we have other volunteer opportunities. It does not stop there. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to myself or your child's principal and let them know you are willing and able to participate. So the format of tonight, basically, we'll begin by doing the welcome and introductions. Then we will have a safety and security presentation. And at the end, we will provide you all with the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. We might not get to every question tonight, but we will work on getting those answers to you in the near future. So tonight's speakers include the Superintendent of Schools here in Crowley ISD, Dr. Michael McFarland.
Good afternoon. Glad to be with you all today.
Thank you, sir. Next is Lachey Maston, who is the Chief of Police here in Crowley ISD.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Then we have Melissa Manning, who is the Crowley ISD Safety and Security Specialist.
Good evening, everyone.
And you all met Marlis Diggles, who is the Director of Strategic Marketing and Recruitment here in Crowley ISD.
Thanks for coming out, everyone.
Last but not least, we have Mr. Jamie Handy, who is the Director of Communications and Marketing, and he makes these things run.
Good evening, Crowley ISD families. It's so glad to see you. Hope you guys have a great evening.
Thank you all.
All right, and also before we go forward, again, I'm Mike McFarland, the superintendent, and I'm definitely honored to serve Crowley ISD and to serve alongside an awesome board of trustees. And so we have our board president, Dr. LaTonya Woodson Mayfield. Dr. Mayfield is traveling, but she wanted to be available and be here, and I see she is on the line. So Dr. Mayfield, I want to give you an opportunity to greet the stakeholders of Crowley ISD.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McFarland, and also thank you, Mr. Muhammad. I am displeased. I would not have missed this. Yes, I am on the road traveling from Atlanta to Fort Worth, and really didn't want to miss this this opportunity to hear more about what the district is doing for safety. I'm very pleased, but also want to say thank you, parents, community members, and leaders in our community, residents, all for joining tonight. I loved hearing the number 100 or nearly 100 at the start of the meeting by Ms. Biggles. So thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. I won't take up too much time, but Mr. Muhammad did mention a couple of opportunities that I don't want anyone to forget. Please, the red carpet is so much fun and it means so much to our young people. So please consider volunteering and showing up at your child's school this week, and then also with other volunteer opportunities. So I'll turn it back over to the district, but thank you for joining, and I will tune in.
Thank you, Dr. Mayfield, for being here. And I know there are other board members that are on the line. And so definitely appreciate you all board members for being here. And then also parents. I mean, we definitely are excited, first of all, about the start of a new school year. I know we all every year get excited around the start of the school year. And this year is no different. We are looking forward to all 16,500 of our students returning on Thursday. And so we have been really working diligently to prepare for them. We think this is going to be a productive year. We're preparing for it to be a productive year. We're preparing for it to be a prosperous year. And we're also preparing for it to be a safe year. And so we are excited about the opportunity tonight to have some conversation with you about what we are doing in preparation, what we have done in preparation, and then to really think through some other proactive steps that we will be taking and to hear from you. The reality is we know that there's always more we can do. And so if there are things that you have, ideas that you have, solutions that you may have, or even things that we need to think about, we welcome your feedback. A part of our mission, a part of our strategic plan really speaks to this idea of having an engaged community. This is our attempt to give you a vehicle to be engaged with us. And so we hope to continue this format, but let's jump into the conversation tonight. Again, we know that safety and security is at the forefront of everyone's mind. And so we want to let you know that we have been working diligently and have been since really the last semester. And so today is just kind of a culmination of some of the work we've done starting in the spring to get to this point, to get ready to launch for the 22-23 school year. I want to start really just by going back, and the governor on June 30th, the governor issued a requirements, for lack of a better word, requirements that for all districts in the state of Texas in response to the Uvalde training. And so what I like to do tonight is to walk through the requirements, to take our time to share with you where we are in Crowley ISD in relation to where we should be against the requirements that that the governor has set forth, and then to give you a chance to ask us questions about what we're working on, and then also share with you what we're doing just proactively to assess to make sure we have a safe environment above and beyond what the governor has required us to do. Please drop your questions in the chat, and we have someone monitoring the chat. And I will stop. So I will stop every often and ask either Ms. Diggles or Mr. Handy to throw a question out if it's relevant, and we'll try to address those. We also will have time at the end to address questions as well. So the first thing is the first step that the governor asked us to do. It was really two steps. One, he initially said that we needed to conduct a summer targeted safety audit. And the reason why this was important, this summer we had more students in schools than probably we've had in a long time. We had over 4,000 students in school over summer at various campuses. And so we immediately during the month of June completed these summer targeted partial safety audits. And we also conducted exterior door safety audits. As you all know, it is so critical that the exterior of our buildings are secure. And so we wanted to make sure that they were, so we conducted those audits. But here's the deal, safety is not a one-time deal. So we have a system now where we'll be checking throughout the year to make sure if you see the kind of indicator over to the right-hand side, my right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the arrows on green, meaning that it has been completed and it's ongoing. So we will continue to conduct the safety audits and the exterior door audits throughout the course of the year. In addition to that, we took another step and went above and beyond even that. We are contracted with the group called the Bowman Group. These are legal experts. These are law enforcement experts, several former chiefs of police here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They came in and they evaluated every aspect, doing an audit of every aspect of our district. We not only wanted to check exterior, we wanted to check interior. We wanted to look at our policies, our procedures, and they are doing a full-scale audit of our safety procedures above and beyond what the governor has asked us to do. And so we're anticipating to get that report by August 31st. They've already completed about 15 campuses. Of course, we have 26 campuses, and they are really en route there. We feel like they'll be complete in a short period of time. Now, what we did though, what we recognize is that, hey, we don't want to wait till the audit is complete and final. We needed to know kind of ongoing what types of things are they uncovering so that we can begin to make plans to address them immediately. And so they have given us some preliminary ideas of the findings, and a couple of findings that will impact every campus. The one thing they said is that we needed to enhance our secure vestibules. So currently, when you go into our buildings, there you have to be buzzed in, and then you would actually have access directly to the front office. Now, the good thing is several years ago, the district took the step to say we want to secure our building, secure our cafeteria, secure access to our classrooms, but we allowed access to our front office. And so what we realize now is it's time for us to increase that level of safety so that the people in the front office, our registrar, our attendance clerk, our nurse, our counselor, our assistant principal, our principal, we felt like without securing them, then our campus, there was another point of possible vulnerability. And so what we've done, and Chief Maston, I want you to come on and talk about kind of where we are with this project. But what we've done is we've enhanced the security of our secure vestibules, and we've taken it up a notch. Chief, why don't you talk to us about exactly what we've done as it relates to those secure vestibules?
All right. The secure vestibule is that glass box that you enter into when you come in from outside, going into the front office. And so parents, we would ask that you have a little patience with us this year because of this security enhancement. That glass box becomes a glass trap, meaning you're stuck in that box and you can't gain entry into the front office unless you are buzzed in. And so this actually gives the people at the front desk a time to try to identify the persons that are coming into the school and for what reasons they're coming into to our schools. So this is the enhancement that we are doing, and it should be done before the start of school.
All right, and so that should be done by Thursday. So there's a couple of questions I want to kind of address. So what we'll do is at the beginning of school, so we will have a person stationed outside at that vestibule, and we'll be able to allow kids and parents to come in and out at the very beginning of school. When school actually is in session, after that first period and kids are dropped off, at that point, things will be kind of secured at the highest level, and the person, the parent, or the child will have to be buzzed in to the secure vestibule, and then also buzzed in to the office. We think that's critical, that's important to maintain safety and really to maintain the security of our people in the front. We also recognize that there are kids with disabilities and others that may have some challenges with this, and we'll work through that. Again, we hope that we're able to quickly get people through this secure vestibule, but we do know that if a person is unauthorized, well, at least this glass box, for lack of a better word, will slow their access to the rest of the building and to actual people. All right. So then another thing that we heard from the audit, and another thing that we kind of began an audit ourselves, but then the Bowman Group also really pointed this out, is that when you look at our security cameras, we know that we currently have analog cameras, and we want to move to the digital cameras with the IPO. And so what we know is that will give us access to be able to have a much a camera that's much more, that's much clearer, higher definition. We're able to place cameras in additional spaces to get complete coverage of our facilities. And so we do think upgrading these cameras is something critical that we need to do so that we can make sure that we can identify we can really help us to identify people who are not on our campus, who shouldn't be, or when something happens, we can identify who was actually involved. And so enhancing our security, our surveillance cameras is really priority one for us. We want to make sure that we're able to have surveillance on our campuses 24/7, someone always monitoring and making sure that we can make sure we have people that are where they're supposed to be, and when they're not, that we know who they are and can identify them. So upgrading of surveillance cameras. Chief, anything you want to add to the upgrading of surveillance cameras?
Yes, again, as you said, it's going to enhance all of our cameras to IP cameras. It makes the picture more vivid, makes the storage even better, and it's going to be a great tool for us, because when something happens, we immediately have someone pull up the cameras to locate the incident, and if it can help us with a vivid description, a direction of travel, it is essential to us and for the safety of the people that are responding to that incident.
All right, so thank you for that, Chief. One question I intended to address about the secure vestibules. There's been a question about whether the glass in the secure vestibules, whether it's bulletproof and all that. So talk to us about the glass in the secure vestibules. And I guess let me think. Go ahead and address that question, Chief.
The glass is not bulletproof. It is a tempered glass, meaning that it will not shatter into pieces. If someone was to shoot through it, it would take several rounds to shatter that glass, and much like on your car windshield.
All right. And I know that we said that we would address these questions at the end, but if they pop up, we may address them. So we'll just keep moving. All right. Another thing is when we talk about entrance into the building, we also got to consider entrance to the campuses and how kids get back and forth to campus. And so one of the things you'll see already at North Crowley, we already have what we will call welcome centers. What we know is the way North Crowley is situated, there are about 3 or 4 different entrances that students or someone from the outside could use to actually get on the campus and get behind the campus. And so what we felt like we needed to do after the audit and after Chief looking at it and we really taking some time to think through it, we felt like we needed what we were calling welcome centers. And so you'll see these welcome centers that'll be placed at the entrances into the parking lot so that we can actually stop, verify who's on the campus, verify that they have an actual purpose of being there, what their destination is, and then allow them to go on to take care of their business. We wanted to make sure that we restrict the access to the back of our building and that we maintain control over the exterior of our buildings. Also, officers will be monitoring the exterior of our building. Security officers will be monitoring the exterior of all of our buildings. But on the high school campuses, for sure, we'll have these welcome centers. Now, you don't see any constructed at Crowley High yet. Once we complete the access points at North Crowley, we then will be working with Crowley High after that. We're looking at the 2 high schools because those are where kids drive. And so we want to make sure that we can actually control the traffic flow on and off of campus, because we know that oftentimes when things happen, it's students from other campuses. Sometimes it's our students, but oftentimes it's students from other campuses or even other districts that are involved. So we want to really begin to restrict and be very, very intentional about who we allow access to our school and to our children. The other thing is, as you all know, we have for a long time had crossing guards around all of our schools. And so last year, we actually had our own police department. And so when we accept the responsibility for our own police department, Crowley PD in the past had provided crossing guards for those schools in Crowley. and primarily best race was the one where we know we had a crossing guard, and then we had an issue with them last year. And so what we're doing, Chief Maston is already in conversations, and we have intentions and plans to have crossing guards at all of our schools, including the 3 elementary schools that are in Crowley ISD. And then we have some other additional crossing guards that will be added. Chief Maston, you want to give just an update on where you are with the conversations around the crossing guards?
Yes, a couple things. We are excited that Crossing Guards of America is expanding from just doing elementaries. They're going to also do middle schools next year. So we should get some support at Crowley Middle School and Summer Creek Middle School. We are still in the progress of talks with Crossing Guards of America to secure crossing guards for Best Race and for Deer Creek.
Also, parents, as you heard Mr. Muhammad talk earlier about involvement and engagement, this is an opportunity where where you can help us. I mean, if you have the time, it doesn't take all day, but it does take a period of time in the morning and afternoon. We need volunteers to help us with this crossing guard. Even if you can only do 1 day a week or 2 days a week, we will definitely welcome any kind of help that you will be willing to offer. And again, we are working to get people in place, but we would love to have someone or maybe multiple people step up and say, hey, I can serve on Monday and Wednesday for an hour or whatever. And we can work with Officer Manning and Chief Maston to get you plugged in, but primarily Best Race, Deer Creek, those are the campuses right now that we know that with all the growth in that area, with the number of students who are walking to school, we know there's going to be an issue, and we would love to have some parent support, specifically helping us with crossing guards if you're available. But we do plan to do that. Another thing is that while we're talking about crossing guards, one of the challenges we've had as it relates to safety has been traffic around Deer Creek, and then also traffic around, we know the traffic in front of H.F. Stevens. And then now recently, since we've opened Alley Middle School, and we know we have such a large number of homes that have been built and occupied around Alley, we know we have kind of congestion on that 1187, at that 1187 light there as well, near Alley Middle School. And so we'll be monitoring these areas, but we're just trying to inform folks that it is definitely, traffic would be a challenge for us, and any kind of help we can get with that would be helpful for sure. But crossing guards, critically, we need volunteers to help us with that if you have the time and available. All right. So as this audit was conducted, again, these are some things that they mentioned. These are what we would consider low-hanging fruit, meaning these are things that we can do very quickly and move on very quickly. And so we are moving on these things at a very rapid pace. Outside of the audits, again, there's some other things, but outside of the audits, they also mentioned, the governor also required us to pull together a district safety and security committee to review our multi-hazard emergency operations plan and also our active threat plan. And this is a plan that we know that will help guide us, in any instance or incident of either man-made or nature-caused emergency. And so we have reviewed our plan. We have a very clear plan of approach, and we are following the emergency operation plan. We're following the incident command system model, where when an incident happens, there's an incident command center that is set up on the campus, on the site of the incident. And then there's also emergency operations center that's set up away from that incident. And normally for us, it will be at the central office. There's coordinated communication that's occurring from central office to the administrators on that campus, and then also from law enforcement on the campus to the law enforcement agencies that are responding. In a crisis, what we recognize is that you have really about 3 different crises that are occurring all together. The first crisis is actually the event. And you have, if it's a man-made event, there's a threat, there's a person who's causing a situation on that campus, and law enforcement is trained, they're trained to identify, locate, and eliminate the threat. They've been trained. All of our officers actually this summer were retrained on the active shooters. They were able to go through Johnson County Sheriff Department and Law Enforcement Department at Aledo. They were able to go. All of our officers have gotten trained there. New ones that have been hired will be trained immediately. but they've been trained to go in, identify the threat, locate the threat, and eliminate the threat. While our law enforcement is focused on eliminating, locating, identifying, and eliminating the threat, then our administrators, the campus administrators, their responsibility is for the safety and well-being of the students and to make sure that they are in a location, a safe location, they're responding appropriately. So our administrators are clear. They are to set the incident command center together on that campus and focus on removing students out of the line of threat. And so that coordination and separation is important. So again, the first crisis is eliminating the threat. The second one is just making sure that we have students in a safe location. And if we have to relocate them, we have a plan to relocate them. The third one is managing the communication of the crisis. Because as you all know, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, when something happens, social media, cell phones, communication can make a crisis or a situation either much better or much worse than what it actually is. And so we're trying to manage all three of those things to make sure that we have, number one, we have accurate information. Number two, that we have informed those people that need to know as quickly as possible. And that would be parents, that would be stakeholders, that would be everyone else. And that we have a coordinated way of eliminating the threat, securing students, removing students from the scene of the threat if possible, and reuniting students with parents if possible. Our emergency operation plan allows us to do all of those things, and is a very clear and detailed process that we were required to go over to review this summer to make sure that we had all the appropriate assignments. And so we've done that up to this. We've done it up to this point, and there will be constant drills and revisions of it as we go throughout the school year. The next thing, though, is it's one thing to have a plan. There's another thing to actually make sure that everyone's trained in the plan and that everyone understands their responsibility during a plan. We also know that we oftentimes will have substitutes. It is so critical also for substitutes to understand the plan and to know how to respond in a certain situation. And so what we have done is we have already begun to share this information with principals and with counselors and nurses, with new teachers, and with all teachers. We'll be continue to go through these plans and to make sure that everyone understands the standard response when a particular event occurs. Again, here's something for you parents that we will definitely, it's important for you to have an idea of what these are and to know these things as well. And we'll talk about how you can get access to them so that when you know, or when you hear that, hey, your campus is on secure, then you know what that means. You have a way of knowing what this means. I strongly encourage you to print this out and put it on your refrigerator or wherever you keep up with information, so you'll always know if you get an email, a text, or a call to say that the campus there's an emergency occurring. You'll be able to know what level of emergency are we responding to. Chief or Officer Manning, would y'all kind of walk us through this standard response protocols and primarily focus on what a parent would need to know when these situations occur?
Yes, Dr. McFarland. Good evening, everyone. So the 5 protocols that we have are the 5 responses. And whenever we have a situation occur at a campus, we ask and train those at the campus level to initiate one of these responses. And so if we, for instance, just to give you a little breakdown, on the shelter in place, if we had a tornado, for instance, or some severe weather, high winds, we would want all students to come into the campus and to come into the centermost and lowest point of the campus to shelter in place. Another example is, like, for instance, if your student goes home and tells you that they had a hold occur at the campus. The hold is simply to announce to the students that they should just stay in their classrooms, perhaps because we have somebody like an ambulance who has a stretcher, and we have somebody who might be sick or ill. What we're doing is getting that student onto a stretcher. We need the space, we need the hallway. So these are just a couple of examples. Of course, I'm available throughout the school year to answer any questions, but we do have these 5 protocols. I'll go through them verbally. It's the first one is hold, again, to clear the hallways. Another one is secure, and this is when we want to lock our exterior doors, and but it's business as usual inside the classrooms and in the hallways. The next one is lockdown, and this is what we want to use whenever we feel like there's something going on within the walls of the school. So we want our classrooms to be locked. We want the lights out in the classroom and out of sight. And then we have evacuate, which is what we do every month when we're doing a fire drill. Our students are exiting the campus and they're actually evacuating at that point. And then of course the shelter in place, and we do it for a number of reasons, of which one I mentioned. But again, I want to reiterate that I am actually available by email. Our emails will be listed at the end of this presentation. And I do welcome your phone calls or any questions you have by email, so that we can talk through whatever your student may have come home to advise you about, okay?
All right, thank you, Officer Manning. And I didn't mention this before, but Officer Manning, we hired Officer Manning actually this summer, and we're definitely so excited to have her with us. She has over 20 years of emergency management experience in much larger districts. And so she has brought with her a wealth of knowledge, and with her and Chief working together, we think we really will put ourselves in the best position to respond appropriately, if and when a crisis occurs. So thank you, and welcome to the team, Officer Manning.
Thank you.
All right. And again, the other thing, as we go down this list, we're required to, of course, schedule. Well, thank you for going back. Jamie. That's good. So one thing, parents, on our app, we'll talk about an app here in a second, but on our app, you'll have all of these different codes. And so understand, when a situation occurs at your campus, just know that when something occurs, if your kid texts you or you hear that something's happening, you can rest assured that there's a team of people who are gathering the factual information, and you can be expecting an immediate communication to the parents about what's going on. And immediate, again, it will be after we get all of the information. There may be a situation where something happens and we have to get all the information so that we can share with you factual information. Like if you have our app, and if you download our app and your emails up to date, then we will give you the most accurate information that you'll receive. So if you hear something on social media, if you hear something on the news, on the radio, that may not be all of the information. You will get the most accurate information at the earliest possible moment. And if we do give you information and information changes, then we'll follow up and correct that information. But our job is to make sure that you know, because we recognize we have your most valuable asset. And so we're going to definitely make sure that you know what's going on as soon as we know it. On the flip side, if you know something that we may not be aware of, then we'll talk in a second about how you can keep us informed, because we think it's a two-way street, and it takes all of us working together. But these standard response protocols are critical. Really being able to take some time to talk to your child about, hey, if you hear this, this is what you're supposed to do. Being able to go over this with your child at home would be something that would be beneficial. And to make sure that they understand, hey, if you hear lockdown, this is what happens. And so that this standard response protocol for us, we will elevate it to a point to where everyone knows what to do. Also, instead of us using codes, the standard response protocol actually communicates clearly what is going on and what the action is that's expected. And so when the principals share, it will be lockdown, lights out, out of sight. That is the message that you'll hear on the intercom from our principals or whoever the person is making an announcement to the people that are in the building. It is so important for us to make sure that we are clear in a moment of crisis. We're clear about what is happening and what they're expected to do. All right. The next item is really just dealing with scheduling of mandatory drills. Again, this is something that we have done in the past. We'll continue to do this and be even more vigilant about making sure that we do the drills, that we go through the drills, so that we can make that, so that when an incident occurs, if it occurs, that we at least have drilled on that incident and we're prepared for it. But those will be scheduled. Officer Manning and Chief Masson will be making sure we're required access to report on those on a regular basis. And we fully anticipate at the state level that they will be coming in to check to make sure that we're doing these drills. The governor has actually created a position and a department to do nothing but check to make sure that we're doing the drills. So we do know this is something that we'll be required to do on a regular basis, and we think it's something that we need to do. The next item deals with a behavioral threat assessment team. And so it's critical that our administrators and our counselors and those teams on the campus can quickly assess whether or not a threat is credible or not. I know many of you probably remember, I think back in Michigan, or back in the spring in Michigan, there was a school shooting that occurred where the student went to the office, they interviewed him, and the kid was allowed to go back to class and then actually, unfortunately, to carry out an act of violence. And so what they're saying now is, what we've been told now is that there has to be a very intentional training of the threat assessment team members, and every campus must have a threat assessment team, and the district must have a threat assessment team. We actually spent last week, we spent a day, about 8 hours last week, we spent with Region 11, which is our service center. They came in and they did threat assessment training for all of our counselors, principals, assistant principals, administrators, central office. For the entire day, we walked through what's required as it relates to being able to assess whether or not the threat is actually viable or not. And so we take every threat seriously, but there is a process that we'll go through, and we very clear questions that we have to address, things that we look for to determine whether the threat is an accurate threat or not, or a viable threat or not. All right, and then number 7 really is the last thing that they ask us to do, and that is really update all of our access control procedures. So really going by and looking at to make sure that all our classroom doors are locked during classroom instruction, that all our exterior doors are locked, and that we're ensuring that they stay locked throughout the day. Now, what we know is that as kids, especially at our high schools, when kids are leaving out of the main building, going to athletic facilities or going to portables or going to exterior buildings, we know that it's going to be critical, because kids are going and coming, that we make sure that those things are locked. And so what we've done is updated our monitoring procedures to where we're constantly checking. They call them doing sweeps, but we're constantly doing sweeps of the exterior doors to make sure that they are locked, because we know that is a challenge. If they're not locked, we know there's the possibilities that gives access to people who shouldn't have access. And again, we've already talked about the parking lot, so I won't go back over that, but just a safety enhancement, that's one of the reasons why we have our welcome centers. The welcome centers will be manned, and students will have to show driver's license and ID when they're coming on campus, if it's after the first period. Once first period, of course, is open, first period, they get on campus, they park. After that, they will have to show IDs. Now, we asked a couple questions on the survey that may impact this. One of the questions dealt with students who actually drive to school and take classes at our BRJ Career Technology Center. In the past, they've been allowed to drive that car back and forth. We are considering restricting that to bus transportation, because with allowing them to drive back and forth, it just really opens up our campus and creates a flow that's hard to manage. And so we are considering that. We'll be looking at the results of the survey. You'll have a chance to give us your opinion, but I can tell you, looking at the results, I think everyone understands the need for us to restrict access. How we do it, that's what we're working on and thinking through. We also have talked about our surveillance cameras. We talked about them inside the building, but we also have them on the exterior, so that we will have 360-degree sight of our buildings. And we're working to make sure, as we're installing cameras, that our entire facility, that there's no way for anybody to walk on our campus without us being able to see them and identify who they are. And so we're working on that. Of course, we have quite a few cameras to put up, so that's going to take a minute, but we will make sure that we have that in place. All right, so the other thing that we're doing, that's actually an enhancement. These are proactive steps outside of what the governor asked us to do, we also took some time to study the report from Uvalde. And so we have identified some things that we can do we looked at the report and said, okay, if that happened here, what can we learn from it? And so what we learned is that we need to have what's called redundancy. And so what that means is, as a principal, if I make the announcement according to my standard response protocol, that we have a lockdown, lights out of sight, then we also need to be sending a follow-up electronic communication. And so many of you at the college level understand the mass notifications. What we're simply saying is that with a click of a button, we can, if we have a lockdown, we can hit a button and that message goes to everyone that's a part of that group, that group, and we can do it through our Raptor system. Right now, if you go on our campus, you know that you have to scan your ID through our Raptor system. Now with that same system, if we have to go through any kind of response, we hit a button that coordinates with that response, and it immediately will communicate to all the people on that campus, all staff members, anyone responsible for securing students and the safety of students will get this notification immediately. And so that will help us in case you have let's say you may have someone that's not in an area where there's a PA system. So then they will know that if you don't have a PA system, then you have this redundancy, which is your phone communication as a backup. Or you may be somewhere, you may be teaching and you don't have a phone, but if you have your PA system, then you get it. So we want to make sure that multiple communication avenues are used in order to communicate what's going on our campuses. And that Raptor system is something the board approved recently. And I just definitely appreciate the board for stepping out there and approving that, because that already sets us up to be ahead of where we have been in the past. Another proactive step that we've taken, and this was actually done last year. Chief Maston brought this in with him, and so we're now just really we're really redoubling our efforts to promote this. It's called an app, and it's called a Stop It app. Now, what you really need to do, parents, in order to have access to the Stop It app, is if you download our district app, then all of this information will be, all the Stop It app will be on there. So basically, Stop It is a name of the app, but really all it is an anonymous incident reporting system. So as a parent, if you overheard kids, maybe you having a slumber party, kids at your house, you overhear them talking about something that's about to happen, and you overhear it, you can anonymously report, hey, the kids are planning to do something, or whatever. So we just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to tell us if something is occurring, and then we'll investigate. When you send in this anonymous tip, then it actually will go to, it's assigned to a particular campus and a particular administrator. It goes to our chief and it goes to law enforcement. We look at it, we determine, is this a legal matter? Is this a student matter? And based on which one it is, then we'll be able to act on it quickly. I can tell you 95% of the times when we find a weapon or we're able to mitigate an incident, is because someone reported it. And so we want to make sure that reporting is about responsibility. And so we want to make sure that we encourage students to take responsibility for the safety of their campus. We'll be meeting with students, talking to them about this, but I encourage you parents to download the app as well. It gives you a chance to report if your kid is having some issues, or if there's something you think that we need to be aware of. You get it out, you send it to us, we'll get it, we'll be able to respond quickly. But again, it is on our CISD website. And if you see tip line, click on it, it goes right to this Stop It app. So, there are other proactive things that we've done. And one of the things is we sent out a survey last week. And so I'll let Mr. Handy come on and talk about the survey. But one of the things before we do that, the point I want to make as I wrap up my portion, like safety is everyone's responsibility. It's our responsibility, the school district, absolutely. It's your responsibility as a parent for us to work together, let us know when something's going on, do your part. Now you're here today. It's Sunday and you're here on this call. So on this Zoom call. So I know you're willing to do your part. We need your help. We welcome your help. We welcome your input. We welcome your guidance, because what we want is to ensure that we have a safe and productive school year. And I believe that we will, and we're preparing for that. And so Mr. Handy will talk to you a little bit about our survey that we have available, and we'll have some time to stop and just have an open dialogue after that. Mr. Handy.
Well, thank you, Dr. McFarland. And families, we just want to say thank you if you've gone on and filled out our survey that we sent out about a week ago. It's part of the proactive safety steps that we are engaging in with you to make sure that you're in the know of everything that we're doing as a district, but also ways that you can get involved. Just like Mr. Muhammad said earlier, he has volunteer opportunities. We want to engage with you and get as many people in our community, our stakeholders involved on campuses to help keep our schools safe. And going back to the survey, we've already had over 600 families fill out the survey, which is a great response in just a little under a week. And we know as we get closer to school starting this week that we'll hear from more and more, but that survey is available on our website. You can go to crowleyisdtx.org and access it there. We've also sent emails to all families that have registered and enrolled for the new school year. And so you'll find that there as well. So fill that survey out, give us your input. We want to know from you what your concerns are. What do you think we should be focusing on as the new school year approaches and gets started, and what we can do to help your family feel safe this school year?
Mr. Handy, can we go ahead and take a few questions from the chat now?
Absolutely, absolutely, we can. So I'll go through here and see what questions we have that I can toss your way. One question I see here, has the district thought about using walk-through metal detectors to monitor students at the middle school and high school level?
So as it relates to metal detectors, we do have the capacity to do the walk-through metal detectors if that becomes a challenge for us. What we have right now is we have hand wands that we're using, which are handheld metal detectors. We've increased the number of hand wands that are available, and we also will be increasing the random checks. We found that is most valuable. We also most effective. We also do what's called K9 searches, where we bring in the dogs who are able to detect both metal, drugs, and other things. And so what we plan to do is to increase those actions first, and then consider later at a later date the stationary metal detectors. But what we found, the hand wands have actually allowed us to be more effective.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Dr. McFarland. Another question is in regards to backpacks. We've seen some districts around the area go to clear backpacks. Where does Crowley ISD stand when it comes to backpacks for the upcoming school year?
That's a great question. I definitely saw that several districts were having those conversations. In Dallas, I know several of the larger districts have gone to clear backpacks for secondary. We had some considerations internally, conversations about it. And so what we decided is that we would ask open-ended questions in the survey to see if that's something that parents felt would help. What we haven't necessarily seen that bubble up as an item yet. And so at this point, we're not anticipating mandating that. We could if we felt like backpacks were an issue, but we think the other things that we're doing will actually help us to address and really deter weapons being brought on campus. We think the random wanding, the random K9 searches, and really everyone just being vigilant about reporting, we feel like those strategies will give us the biggest bang for our buck. So we have not made a decision yet on requiring clear backpacks. If we decide to make a decision like that, because of where we are in preparation for school, we know that we would have to make sure as a district that we were able to provide those backpacks or some kind of backpacks if we chose to go that route. But at this point, a decision has not been made on regulating backpacks.
Here's one talking about, will we have more counselors and programs to help our kids on campus?
That's a great question. And I tell you, I was at a mental health conference a couple of weeks ago, and there was a statement that was made, and I'm like, man, that is absolutely true. And that statement said that lack of connection has led to harm and death of more children than cancer or cigarettes or guns or anything else. Like it's students not being connected. And so what we know is that we have to be very intentional about students being connected to an adult, a positive adult, in our schools. And so that's one of the reasons why we hired Mr. Muhammad as our Director of Student Engagement and Parent and Community Partnerships, because we want to bring different groups and clubs into our organizations so students can feel connected. The one commonality between most of the school shooters is that they have felt they have not been connected to any kind of group, positive support group within our schools. So that's the first step. But the second step is the counselors. We know that when kids have mental health challenges, and so mental health is such a global term, and what we are doing right now is getting very specific. And so in a couple of weeks, we'll be rolling out, our district mental health initiative. We know that, that depression is real. We know that social anxiety is real. We know that suicide is real. We know that just these bullying is real. And so there are really about 7 things that we've identified that fall up under the term mental health. And people think that counselors are the ones to address all of those, but quite frankly, we must have a systemic approach. And so we're working on that. So we have added counselors, but we also have increased our social and emotional learning specialists and support folks on our campuses to be able to address those kind of things. And we'll be doing a district-wide mental health initiatives so we can increase the awareness. And so that when kids are not okay, we can make sure that they feel comfortable going to someone, and then we can intervene appropriately or connect them with services as well. So we are looking at both counselors, but also other groups and clubs and organizations and outside agencies to help us with that.
Thank you. As students move to and from classes inside of the high school specifically, will teachers, staff, and other hall monitors be present to monitor the safety of students as they move to and from classes?
That is that's another great question. One of the things is that when things happen, especially at the high school, it often occurs during the change of classes, and because you got 2,000 kids moving backwards and forwards, and so we know that that's an issue. And so yes, we will have teachers will be required to be on duty, which they are normally anyway, and then also hall monitors. We have hall monitors, folks that we hire to be inside of the building monitoring the halls. And we also have security, SRO officers who are there as well for any kind of criminal action. But we do have people that are hired specifically to monitor kids walking, kids passing in the hallways. So that will be present.
Now, for this one, I'm aware that Specialist Manning is bilingual, I believe, but is this information going to be available in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking families?
Great question, and that is something we'll be getting with Officer Manning and others. And what we intend to do is take these questions in the chat, and we'll take all of the questions that you submitted, the ones that we can ask, the one that we are able to answer tonight, and then even the ones that we want. We'll translate those questions, and then we'll also provide those questions in a FAQ document to all of our Spanish speakers. We also will be in the process of scheduling a meeting to actually do the same, to have the same kind of conversation with our Spanish parents. Thank you for bringing that up. That is something that we definitely need to do, and we will be working on scheduling that. And it likely will be a quick turnaround, and so we may need your help, some of you all parents that are on here, to help get that word out, but we definitely will do that as well. Thank you for bringing that question up.
Another hot topic that's been brought up by multiple folks is monitoring of the bathrooms. I don't know if Chief wants to touch on this or who wants to touch bathrooms, but between smoking and other things that could happen in a bathroom, there's several parents that have asked about that as well.
Chief Maston, why don't you address that one?
Yes, thank you. We have devices that we can put into, that we have put into bathrooms randomly to check signatures of smoke, vapor, masking, and also keywords like help and things like that. It's not in all of our bathrooms, but they're in some of our most used restrooms, and they're not video. They are just sensors, and they help us to monitor those things that happen in those bathrooms.
Thank you, Chief.
And I do believe last year, Chief, I believe we were piloting a couple, and then I think we'll continue to do that and consider expanding, especially in those areas where we know we are having high incidents of misbehavior. That we'll definitely be using those in there. Now, Chief, you said masking, and I think that's maybe a legal term, or not a law enforcement term that maybe parents may not be aware of. At least I was not aware of it. So tell us what masking is as it relates to vaping and smoking in bathrooms.
Masking is like that spraying of a certain perfume or pheromone to mask the smell of what you're doing in that space.
Okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Another question we have is, will students be able to carry personal medicine for emergencies during transportation to and from different campuses?
So as it relates to transporting of medicine and all, our enhancements or modifications to our protocols did not address any changes in medical procedures. So whatever has been allowed in the past as it relates to transporting of medicine or not, that'll be no changes as a result of the audits and the things that we've done. There'll be no changes to that. And so that may be a question that you would have to get with your either campus principal or nurse to answer, but there was no changes to access to medicine.
Okay, we have a question here. What can parents do to help? What opportunities are available for parents or community members?
Great question. So what I'll try to do is take my time to walk through this. So the first level is just information. So as we talk about a whole parent initiative, the first level is information. So one thing parents can do is make sure that students understand the standard response protocol and what to do, when to do. So in order to do that, you download the app. If you download the app, then we're going to be pushing out information to you and you will stay informed. So if the parent is informed, if you as a parent are informed and you help us to just inform your child, that is that's huge. But let's say you want to go even beyond that. Let's say you had 5 hours a week that you can devote. Well, one of the things that we know is that oftentimes when kids leave home, they may not see a smiling face or get a pat on the back. So, being able to be at our campuses at the beginning of school and just welcome kids into the building, that's just being a greeter, for lack of a better word. Sometimes that smiling face will change that kid's day. And it helps us with visibility and having adults being visible. And so if you have the hour or 2 hours or 5 hours a week, get with your principal. We can coordinate you to become a volunteer to be just present on our campuses. And here's the deal. If we're able to be present, if parents and others are able to be present, then our teachers can actually have that time to be able to be in the classroom preparing for lessons. So it's important if you have that. If you have time for lunch, to just come in and stand around at lunch and be able to observe and help us with monitoring. That's definitely beneficial. Being able to be after school as just a campus presence and a monitor, that's beneficial. Those are the kind of things that at the lowest level of moving from being an informer, but also being involved, that allows you to be involved. Now, if you want to be engaged at a higher level, we'll be having clubs and organizations and groups on different campuses. So let's say you have a particular skill. Maybe you like to build drones, or maybe you enjoy sewing, or maybe you enjoy painting or whatever. You have a special talent and you want to be connected to your kid's school, then you'll be able to, if you'll let Mr. Muhammad know, we're in the process of putting together groups and clubs and organizations on each campus so that we can actually give kids new experiences and they can connect to a support group. So if you have a special talent in a particular area, and maybe you can give 1 hour a month or 2 hours a month after school, then we can take that. We can plug you in somewhere on some campus if you have that choice, if you have that desire. The other thing is, after that, we know that we are growing. We are a fast growth and we are growing significantly in our area. And so we'll have to pull together committees that'll help us to start to think about what Crowley ISD will look like in the year 2025 and 2030 and going forward. And so we'll be having these long range planning meetings. So if you want to actually be more engaged and really add your insight. And maybe your kid's in elementary and you want to make sure that your kid has a high quality middle school or high school, then now is the time for you to sign up to be a part of our long range planning meetings that'll be coming out this semester. And then there's other ways that you'll be hearing about volunteers and others, but we want to make it easy for you to be engaged, because what we know is that when we work together, school district, parents, community, then not only will we have a safe school, but we'll have an engaged community, and our students will be able to thrive because of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I know it's already 7:30, so we can see if we can get to a couple more. But then after that, I've put on the screen, you've seen on our screen the contact information. You can email any of the speakers from tonight. If you have any further questions, or if we didn't get a chance to get to your question, I know we have lots of questions pouring in and we're doing our best to answer them as much as we can. But we can get to a couple more here before we jump off.
Yeah, I'm willing to stay. I'm willing to stay as long as we need to, Jamie. So let's just keep going.
Okay.
All right.
So there's three questions to this one, so I'll say them all, and you probably hopefully answer them all at one time.
All right.
Will my elementary age student be allowed to carry a cell phone or call or text in an emergency? Also, for elementary students with asthma or seizures, will they be able to keep medicine in the classroom or in a backpack to use if needed in the event of a lockdown? And then the third question was, under what circumstances will I be allowed as a parent to walk my child to the front door at drop off?
All right, and a couple of those questions are based on the campus procedures, but let's take the last question, and I'll try to go that way. So what we do know is the first day of school, being able to walk kids in, we definitely want to do that. We want to make sure that kids feel comfortable, but there is a point in time to where we have to be able to deal with that handoff, and so the campus principal will be able to kind of have more detailed information about that. We don't mandate at the district level how that occurs, but we do want to make sure that we get students in the position to where they feel comfortable leaving once you're able to hand them off to their teacher. So the first day or two, we'll definitely be allowing parents to walk kids all the way in. After that, there is a process. It may be that you walk them into the cafeteria, but there is a process where there's a handout where teachers will come pick them up and take them from there. But we do encourage that, especially for elementary kids, for sure. I think the other question dealt with their medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, asthma or seizure medication in the event of a lockdown. And then the other one was elementary age students being allowed to carry a cell phone to call or text in an emergency.
Let me do this. Before I answer those two questions about the cell phone, I know that we don't, I know students can have cell phones, they just can't be on during the day or during the course of the lesson. There are particular times when teachers may ask them to use them to do particular things. But let me do this. Let me get the answer to that question. If you can send us to campus, then we can actually get very specific on how and when and all that about that question. But those are good questions. And I definitely want to answer that question for you before the first day of school, or at least get you connected with that principal, and they can answer that question for that campus. So let's do that. If y'all make sure someone can follow up with the person that asked that question.
Absolutely. The next topic we've had questions on is in regard to bus safety and bus stops. What is the district doing around bus safety for this year?
Great question. As it relates to bus safety, we do have cameras on our buses, and we have a bus monitor on our buses. And we will actually, when we have situations where we're having incidents at particular bus stops, we do have officers that can monitor different bus stops. We don't necessarily have an officer at every bus stop, but we do have patrols that are occurring, patrols that are occurring around those bus stops to make sure if we see that there are issues, then we have ways of getting there quickly. We also are working to make sure that we have apps where we can know who's on what bus, and we have know where kids are and able to find kids if there's a challenge or problem.
Thank you, sir. Here's a question. Will this recording be available for parents? Will it be distributed to parents or for those that weren't able to make it?
That's a good question. We intend to capture all of the questions that are asked and make sure that we have a response to the questions that have been asked. And we'll get with, of course, with specialist Manning, and make sure we have it translated in Spanish. And then we will make that document available to everyone. And I believe I'll check with our communication team about making this presentation available for everyone also who were not able to be on the call today.
Will officers be on elementary campuses or patrol them often? Have there been any tests on how quickly officers can be on campuses in an emergency situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we actually, I think we have, Chief Maston, how many officers do we currently have?
We currently have, 10 officers and 2 sergeants and myself.
All right. And so what we do know is that we have like 26 campuses or 26 buildings. And so what we know is that we have some campuses where they have officers assigned to them and others where officers are assigned to monitor. We do also have partnerships both with Fort Worth Fort Worth PD and Crowley PD and also the Tarrant County Sheriff Department. And so we're able to bring in additional officers. We know that for the first beginning of school, we'll have additional officers so that we'll have visibility at all campuses, and that is including elementary campuses.
We have one question regarding the SRP that we discussed earlier. It says, does this mean that during recess or any other outside activities such as field day, that doors are remaining unlocked during that time? They weren't sure which acronym it was. I think they were talking about secure or lock down those SRPs that we have. But our doors remain unlocked during that time at elementary schools.
So doors, once school start, the doors will be locked. And so if someone's on the playground, of course, they'll have a way of getting back in, but the doors will be locked. The other thing about playgrounds, when we built the schools, then the schools were built as like community schools. And so our playgrounds were available to our community. What we know now is that a point of challenge for us is access to our playgrounds. So we have actually contracted with our builders to look at what it would cost to, we've got an estimate of what it will cost to enclose all of our playgrounds with fences. And so we're in the process of looking at how we could actually do that. And it'll take some time, but all of our elementary playgrounds are open. Most of them are open now. And our plans are to make sure that they all fit so that they're secure with fencing during the school day.
If we see kids from either middle or high school fighting while walking home, do we alert Crowley ISD police or local police?
You know, if you see kids fighting, and you can definitely alert our Crowley ISD police, but both Crowley ISD police and Crowley police, they're communicating. So if there's a need for coordination, that will happen. So any police is appropriate to let them know that.
Going back inside the campuses, has the district discussed or thought about using deadbolts on classroom doors? Once the bell rings, the deadbolts are engaged.
That's something that that's something that we could take into consideration. We currently have doors that lock, and so I'm not sure if they're deadbolt or not, but that's something that we'll make a note and get with our facilities person to see if there's another level of security that we could have.
Talking about cameras, can we talk a little bit more about the upgraded cameras? What's the difference between what we have versus what the new ones will do? And also, are these cameras actively monitored on a daily basis while school is in session?
Chief Maston, why don't you answer that question?
Thank you. The difference between the cameras is that fuzzy vision versus a clear, defined picture. We've all seen those pictures where you can just see a blur. Those are some of the analog cameras that are still out there. We are replacing all of those with digital cameras. Our dispatch and our security office, we keep our cameras up while we have instruction, and also each principal has access to cameras also. So those cameras are being monitored. When there is an incident, we can go back and capture things, right then, right there when we get the information that something is occurring on our campuses.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a procedure in place for high school students to have access to use the bathrooms? They are usually locked and they don't know when they can use them or which ones are open.
So what oftentimes happens is depending on the campus and kind of what's occurring on that campus at different points in times, the bathroom access is restricted. I know that some campuses is normally during the first 10 to 15 minutes of the class, and the last 10 to 15 minutes of class, then bathrooms are locked. And in some cases, if we have either damage to the bathroom or we have some work being done, then bathrooms are locked. And so that is a campus decision, and it's really based upon what is available. There will be a bathroom available. It just may not be in every end of the hall, especially if we have a part of the hall that we're not able to monitor and we've been having some challenges with. So that's just a campus decision, and it could go from campus to campus.
Talking about sports facilities, what type of security, or if any, are available or in use at our sports facilities?
So at our sports facilities, of course, we also all the same kind of security elements that we're mentioning, whether it's surveillance. We definitely have a surveillance at our sports facilities. We do have this new multi-purpose stadium. And so at that stadium, we'll have cameras and we'll have metal detecting systems during the games and all that. So we have additional security at the games. And then we'll be having considerations about IDs and other things as we go forward. But all of the safety protocols that we're talking about here, we'll have at those facilities. We also will be doing some working through our standard response protocol. And so if something occurs at stadiums or at games, that we have a way of responding. We have administrators on duty, and those administrators on duty have been trained to work with the law enforcement and others on what to do if there's an incident that occurs at those events.
Thinking about the safety protocols in place and our procedures, to what account have kids with special needs, wheelchairs, things like that, have they been thought about as we put our procedures in place?
We're definitely thinking about them, and as we've done, we make accommodations for students who need access, and that could vary from student to student depending on what type of challenge they are working with and they're living with. And so what we try to do is make sure that if we have a child that's having to travel and having to leave out of the campuses or in the campuses, or having to go upstairs or downstairs, that in the case of an emergency, normally someone is assigned to actually take care of that child to make sure that whatever their disability is, it doesn't prevent them from getting the safety. So we do plans particularly for and specifically for students who have either any kind of physical impairment, or if a mental impairment, we have people assigned during a crisis to take special care and pay special attention to those children to get them to safety.
This parent has a student that will be attending Crowley Collegiate Academy this year, and she has to take 2 buses, one to her home campus and then another to Crowley Collegiate Academy from that campus. Are there any plans on having a designated bus for CCA students so they only have to take 1 bus in the morning?
You know, I definitely appreciate you bringing it up. That's the first time that's been brought up. So we need to talk about that. So there's not any plans right now. However, I just need to get a little bit more information. And Mr. Muhammad, if you can get a little bit more information about that issue specifically, and we can see if there's something that we need to do as it relates to the transportation there.
Yeah, so please have that parent, mom, dad, whoever, please shoot me an email and then we'll look into that. Thank you for the question.
All right, I'm looking through here to see if there are any other big questions. You know, this is a great one to kind of wrap up our evening with, Dr. McFarland, but in your mind, what is your biggest challenge when you think about the safety and security of the students at Crowley ISD?
I think probably the biggest challenge is just to make sure that that the lines of communication are open, and that as that parents, as you are monitoring student social media, that you're able to communicate with us freely and quickly, and that we're able to communicate with you. I think communication really, quite frankly, is the biggest challenge. Oftentimes in school violence situations, there are signs and we miss them. And so being able to communicate effectively, that's critical. Like we need to be monitoring kids' social media, quite frankly. And we need to make sure as adults, we need to make sure that we have an inviting culture in our district where kids can find their group, they can find their people, they can find their connection. Because when kids are connected, we think that safety it takes care of itself. And so I think it's just that communication, it's making sure we have connections and that we're working together, we're collaborating to make sure kids are safe.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think this is a perfect way to wrap up our evening. I want to thank all the families and staff and stakeholders that were able to jump on tonight and join us for our first conversation around school safety as we start the new school year. We will have more Parent Pride Unified Zoom sessions throughout the school year, so be on the lookout for our next one. And we hope that if you have any questions, again, as the school year approaches, it's the first week of school, please feel free to reach out to your student's campus or to the central administrators that were on here tonight, or the ones that you find online. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great night.
I have one question. I have one question before we get off. I know this is an unconventional time, but we were trying to figure out a time that would not conflict with the Meet the Teacher nights and all of that. And so I guess parents, the question I would have is, if this Sunday evening around 6:30, maybe if we stick to an hour next time, but around 6:30 to 7:30, does this time work for you? Or would you prefer a weekday evening time for parent Zoom session for Parent University? If you would just drop it in the chat that says, hey, yes, this time works, or no, I prefer after someday during the week. Drop that in the chat if you will. We'll monitor that. Let's leave the chat open for a little bit, Jamie, maybe with some of the good music you had on before. And I hope everyone will be able to have a good evening. Definitely give us your feedback. We want it. We welcome it. We need you. And so if you can give us an hour, if you can give us 2 hours, if you can give us a day, 2 days, we'll take whatever you have to give, because we think that working together, we can make sure our kids are safe. Thank you all. Drop your response in the chat, and let's make sure hopefully y'all have a good evening.
Dr. McFarland, real quick, let me also just reiterate, there were most of the questions that were asked tonight, a lot of them actually revolve around opportunities where you all can volunteer and be a presence at your particular child's campus. I just want to remind you that you have to actually go to the Crowley ISD website, and you have to go under parents and make sure you start the background check process under volunteering. And like I said, reach out to me, reach out to the administrators at your child's campus to let them know that you are interested in volunteering, because we definitely can't do it alone. And we also want to reiterate the fact that no matter how good the procedures we put in place are, your child is the one who may see something. So make sure you download that app, have those conversations with your child, and always have them reach out to one of the administrators or teachers if they see something that needs to be reported. So we appreciate you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will keep the Zoom open for the next few minutes, just to allow everybody a chance to put their submissions in for this time and date works. But if not, you guys have a great evening.